Douglas Murray's critique of UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer during his tenure in office has ignited a firestorm of debate and reflection within political circles and the broader public discourse. Murray, a renowned commentator known for his sharp wit and incisive analysis, meticulously dismantled Starmer's record, focusing on the policies, leadership style, and broader implications of his time in power. His takedown was not only a searing indictment of the Prime Minister, but also a broader commentary on the challenges faced by modern leadership in navigating complex political and social landscapes. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. Starmer, a former barrister turned politician, rose to prominence as a figure of competence and pragmatism, traits that contrasted sharply with his predecessor's more tumultuous leadership style. His early days in office were marked by a pledge to unify a deeply divided nation and party, promising a steady hand and a renewed focus on tackling systemic issues. However, Murray's critique illuminated the chasm between these promises and the perceived reality of Starmer's leadership. He argued that Starmer's approach often lacked the boldness and clarity needed to address the pressing concerns of the time, suggesting that his tenure was marked more by cautious politicking than decisive action. One of the central pillars of Murray's argument was Starmer's handling of the economy. At a time when the UK faced unprecedented economic challenges, including rising inflation, a cost of living crisis, and post-Brexit adjustments, Murray contended that Starmer's policies were often reactive rather than proactive. He described the Prime Minister as someone who appeared more concerned with avoiding mistakes than with making impactful decisions. This critique resonated with those who felt that Starmer's government had failed to articulate a coherent economic vision, leaving businesses and households grappling with uncertainty. In particular, Murray highlighted the government's response to the energy crisis as emblematic of Starmer's broader failings. The crisis, which saw energy prices skyrocket and many households struggling to afford basic utilities, demanded swift and innovative solutions. However, Murray argued that Starmer's approach was overly technocratic, relying on short-term subsidies and stopgap measures without addressing the underlying structural issues. This, he suggested, was a missed opportunity to implement transformative policies that could have both alleviated immediate suffering and laid the groundwork for a more sustainable energy future. Murray also delved into the cultural and social dimensions of Starmer's leadership, portraying him as a leader out of step with the broader national mood. He criticized the Prime Minister's tendency to prioritize the appeasement of activist factions within his party over the concerns of ordinary voters. According to Murray, this dynamic led to a series of policy decisions and public statements that alienated key demographics. Particularly in traditionally labor-supporting areas, he painted a picture of a leader caught between competing pressures, struggling to reconcile the demands of a rapidly changing political landscape. The issue of immigration featured prominently in Murray's critique, reflecting its continued significance in UK politics. He accused Starmer of failing to provide a coherent strategy for managing immigration, arguing that his government's policies oscillated between overly liberal and harshly restrictive without achieving meaningful progress. This inconsistency, Murray suggested, eroded public trust and fueled political polarization. He argued that Starmer's inability to strike a balance on this issue underscored a deeper weakness in his leadership, a reluctance to confront difficult questions head-on. In discussing Starmer's foreign policy, Murray painted a similarly unflattering picture. He accused the Prime Minister of lacking a clear and principled stance on key international issues, describing his approach as reactive and overly cautious. Murray pointed to the UK's strained relationship with the European Union, its limited influence in global conflicts, and its inconsistent stance on human rights issues as evidence of a broader failure to assert leadership on the world stage. He argued that this lack of vision not only diminished the UK's standing internationally, but also weakened its ability to navigate a rapidly changing global order. Murray's critique extended beyond policy to Starmer's leadership style and political instincts. He described the Prime Minister as a leader who often appeared more comfortable in the courtroom than on the campaign trail, suggesting that his legalistic approach to politics hindered his ability to connect with voters. According to Murray, this disconnect was particularly evident in Starmer's handling of public criticism and his interactions with the media. He portrayed Starmer as overly defensive and prone to avoiding direct confrontation, a trait that Murray argued undermined his credibility as a decisive leader. One of the most scathing aspects of Murray's critique was his assessment of Starmer's relationship with his own party. He argued that the Prime Minister's attempts to balance the competing factions within Labour often resulted in paralysis and indecision. This dynamic, Murray suggested, not only weakened Starmer's ability to lead effectively, but also left the party divided and demoralized. He pointed to a series of high-profile policy reversals and internal disputes as evidence of this dysfunction, portraying Starmer as a leader who struggled to impose discipline and direction within his own ranks. Murray's critique also touched on the broader implications of Starmer's leadership for the Labour Party and the UK's political landscape. He argued that Starmer's tenure had exposed deep-seated tensions within Labour, highlighting the challenges of reconciling the party's traditional working-class base with its increasingly progressive, urban-focused wing. This, Murray suggested, was not only a problem for Labour, but a reflection of broader societal divisions that had yet to be effectively addressed by any political leader. The implications of Murray's critique extend beyond Starmer's personal legacy, raising fundamental questions about the nature of political leadership in the 21st century. He argued that Starmer's failings were emblematic of a broader trend in modern politics: the rise of leaders who prioritize optics and short-term gains over substantive long-term solutions. Murray's analysis served as a warning about the dangers of this approach, suggesting that it risks eroding public trust and undermining the effectiveness of democratic institutions. Despite the harshness of his critique, Murray acknowledged the challenges that Starmer faced during his time in office. He noted that the Prime Minister inherited a deeply divided nation and party, as well as a host of complex and interconnected crises. However, he argued that these challenges made it all the more important for Starmer to provide strong and visionary leadership, a standard that Murray contended he failed to meet. Murray's takedown of Starmer's tenure was not merely an academic exercise, but a call to action for the UK's political class. He urged leaders to move beyond the cautious, poll-driven politics that he associated with Starmer's leadership, advocating instead for bold, principled decision-making. Murray's critique resonated with many who shared his frustration with the state of UK politics, highlighting a growing demand for leaders who are willing to take risks and tackle difficult issues head-on. In summing up Starmer's time in office, Murray painted a picture of a leader who, despite his intelligence and professionalism, ultimately fell short of the demands of the moment. He portrayed Starmer as a well-meaning but flawed figure, whose cautious and technocratic approach left him ill-equipped to navigate the turbulent waters of modern politics. Murray's analysis was not only a critique of Starmer as an individual, but a broader commentary on the challenges of political leadership in an era of rapid change and deep division. The event served as a stark reminder of the high stakes of political leadership and the need for leaders who can rise to the occasion. Murray's critique of Starmer's tenure underscored the importance of vision, courage, and authenticity in navigating the complexities of modern governance. It also highlighted the dangers of relying too heavily on caution and consensus, suggesting that true leadership requires a willingness to take bold and sometimes unpopular stands. Douglas Murray's dissection of Keir Starmer's tenure as Prime Minister wasn't just a criticism of a political career, but a broader critique of the political system that allowed such a leader to ascend to power and remain at the helm. Murray's analysis, layered and multifaceted, illuminated not only the perceived weaknesses in Starmer's leadership, but also the environment that shaped his rise and sustained him. This systemic critique expanded the conversation, pushing beyond Starmer's individual performance and delving into the mechanics of British politics in the 21st century. One of the key themes Murray explored was the mediocrity he attributed to modern political leadership. He argued that the structures of political parties and their internal dynamics often prioritize leaders who are safe and inoffensive over those who are innovative and daring. Starmer, in Murray's view, embodied this trend, a leader whose appeal was largely rooted in his ability to avoid controversy and project an image of competence, rather than in his capacity to inspire or to tackle systemic challenges head-on. This, Murray suggested, was symptomatic of a broader crisis in political leadership, where risk-averse behavior and a fixation on polling data often overshadow the need for transformative vision. Murray's critique extended to the Labour Party itself, which he argued had become a microcosm of the challenges facing the UK as a whole. He painted a picture of a party grappling with identity crises and internal contradictions, unable to reconcile the divergent priorities of its urban progressive wing and its traditional working-class base. Starmer's leadership, Murray argued, failed to bridge this divide, instead exacerbating tensions through a lack of clear direction. By attempting to please everyone, Starmer pleased no one, leaving Labour in a state of inertia and uncertainty. This dynamic, Murray contended, had broader implications for the UK's political landscape. He argued that the inability of the Labour Party to present a coherent and compelling alternative to the ruling government had weakened the opposition's role as a check on power. This, he suggested, not only undermined democratic accountability but also left many voters feeling disillusioned and disenfranchised. Murray's analysis highlighted the importance of a strong and effective opposition in maintaining the health of a democratic system, emphasizing that Starmer's leadership represented a missed opportunity to fulfill this crucial role. The media's role in shaping Starmer's tenure also featured prominently in Murray's critique. He argued that the press, far from holding Starmer to account, often shielded him from scrutiny in ways that ultimately did a disservice to the public. According to Murray, this dynamic allowed Starmer to avoid confronting difficult questions and to maintain an image of competence without having to deliver substantive results. This critique extended to the broader relationship between politics and the media, with Murray suggesting that the symbiotic nature of this relationship often prioritized narrative over substance, leaving voters with a distorted understanding of the issues at stake. Murray also explored the cultural undercurrents that shaped Starmer's leadership and the challenges he faced. He argued that Starmer's tenure was emblematic of a broader cultural shift in which the demands of political correctness and identity politics often clashed with the realities of governance. This, Murray suggested, created a minefield for leaders like Starmer, who struggled to navigate the competing pressures of appeasing activist groups while addressing the practical concerns of voters. Murray described this tension as one of the defining challenges of modern politics, highlighting the difficulty of reconciling ideological purity with pragmatic governance. At the heart of Murray's critique was a sense of frustration with what he perceived as the lack of courage and conviction in Starmer's leadership. He argued that the Prime Minister's tenure was marked by an over-reliance on focus groups and polling data, resulting in policies that were often watered down and uninspiring. This, Murray suggested, reflected a broader trend in which leaders prioritize short-term political survival over long-term vision and impact. He called for a return to a style of leadership that is driven by principles and a willingness to take risks, even in the face of political adversity. The international dimension of Starmer's leadership also came under scrutiny, with Murray arguing that the UK's diminished role on the global stage was a reflection of the Prime Minister's lack of strategic vision. He suggested that Starmer's cautious approach to foreign policy left the UK struggling to assert itself in a rapidly changing world order. Murray pointed to missed opportunities to strengthen alliances, take bold stands on human rights issues, and lead on global challenges such as climate change as evidence of this failure. He argued that the UK's diminished influence was not only a loss for the country, but also for the broader international community, which could benefit from a more active and principled British presence. Murray's analysis of Starmer's legacy also touched on the generational divide in UK politics. He argued that Starmer's leadership often failed to resonate with younger voters, who are increasingly concerned with issues such as climate change, social justice, and economic inequality. Murray suggested that this disconnect was a result of both Starmer's cautious approach and the broader challenges of engaging a generation that is often skeptical of traditional political structures. He argued that bridging this divide would require not only a shift in policies, but also a reimagining of how political leaders communicate and connect with their constituents. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Douglas Murray's critique of Keir Starmer's time in office? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.